Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pantry Challenge at Calvi Homestead. There has been a little bit of an update for our Pantry Challenge. We talked about last week how I'm still probably going to go to the grocery store for things here and there, maybe some convenience foods for my son's lunch and stuff like that. Well, I've decided I'm cutting that off because I had forgotten about a prior commitment I had made to a local family that I bought several whole frozen pasture-raised chickens from them. Well, I'd placed the order and I had forgotten about it. I'd forgotten it was going to happen during Pantry Challenge. So now we have even more stuff to stuff into our freezers because we also got our hog back. So this is probably the perfect time for this Pantry Challenge because now my freezers from when you saw them last week are even more stuffed. So I'm kind of changing my rules a little bit, which you're allowed to do because it's your Pantry Challenge. I am only going to buy stuff from the store that is either milk or salad greens or maybe some sort of dairy. That is it. That is all I'm sticking with, and I'm going to try to keep that up for at least the next 2 weeks through January. We started the Pantry Challenge a little late. I'm going to try to keep that up through January. So another thing that we are wanting to work on during the Pantry Challenge is food waste. We do not want to waste food, so either I am going to make sure I don't cook too much food, or if I do, we eat the leftovers, so there is no food waste. So let's get in. I'll show you guys what I made this week, and then I'll catch you back at the end of the video.
Okay, starting out this week, I am making a pasta dish. So I'm cutting a chunk of feta off of the huge block of feta, and I love this stuff. I get it from Azure, and it is so good. I say that too much, so good, but it really is. It's so good. And then, so here I'm pulling out the cherry tomatoes that I had kept in the freezer. These were just cherry tomatoes from our summer garden, and you just pop the little stems off and throw them into a Ziploc bag and throw them into the freezer. It is that easy, and I typically save them to make this pasta. And if you didn't already know, this is like that viral TikTok pasta stuff, and we really like it. So just adding the cherry tomatoes, and then we're gonna season it up. So here we are seasoning it up. I just have my minced garlic that I'm using. You guys know, if you've been watching the Pantry Challenge or any recipe video, that I love my minced garlic. So of course we put that in there. And then I just added some salt. I didn't add too much because of the feta and because it's pretty salty. And then black pepper we added, and of course some Italian seasonings, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna drizzle it with some olive oil, and then we are gonna throw this in the oven and cook it until it gets nice and bubbly, maybe a little bit caramelized. And the olive oil I'm using on here is my garlic infused olive oil. And so my oven doesn't have a broiler in it, but if you had a broiler, I would broil it just for a couple minutes at the end, just to get a little bit more color on it. Oh, I went in with some minced onion as well, and then a little bit of pepper flakes. This was actually the discard from the hot sauce I made, and I just dehydrated all of the leftovers that I'd sifted out, and it's actually really good. So yeah, and then I really wasn't feeling it this night. I just kind of wanted a hands-off dinner. So I decided to make my pasta in the Instapot. It's not my favorite way to do it, but it works. you just got to stir it real good when it's finished. So to do this, you put a pound of pasta in your Instapot and then 4 cups of liquid. I did 2 cups of chicken broth and 2 cups of just water. And I use the chicken broth because it gives it so much more flavor. And then I cook this in my Instapot for 6 minutes, and then I let it sit for about another 5 minutes before I open it up. And oh yeah, I do add a little bit of oil to try to help prevent sticking, but it does honestly stick a little bit. So just be aware of that if you try this. I still do it even though it's not my favorite. It just makes life a little bit easier. So honestly, I could have cooked off the liquid a little bit longer, but we were just ready to eat, and it actually still turned out really, really good. The pasta kind of soaked up any extra juices anyway, so it was just fine. And I just used this potato masher to break up the tomatoes, and then you just add it to your pasta. And whenever I was talking about sticking, I was talking about the pasta sticking together, not sticking to the Instapot. And you can see it looks still really good. And that was it. Super simple, super easy. So I don't know if I'm just having the winter blues kind of thing, but I was not feeling cooking dinner really these nights, and I ended up doing it to stick with the pantry challenge. And I did something pretty simple. I just had to cook a little bit and then assemble. So I ground 2 pounds of ground beef, which I did not need 2 pounds. I should have only ground 1 pound. And then I did a pound of pinto beans, which I did not need 1 pound. I probably should have done a half a pound. So we actually ate on this for a couple days because it made so much. So while I'm browning my meat, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up my pinto beans. I drain them. I leave a little bit of water in there still, so when I mash them up, they don't keep dry or keep too dry. But I'm just going to season them up real simple. We're just making my version of refried beans, just a super simple version of it. So I'm going to salt them. I put some Italian seasoning in there. I'm going to put some minced onion in there. And then I'm sure I'm going to do some minced garlic because I always put minced garlic in stuff. And then the most important seasoning when pinto beans is cumin. You need to add that cumin in there. Oh, I did ground garlic in this one. I forgot because I didn't want it to be too chunky. So then I just used my potato masher for the second night in a row, and I mashed these up to make my simple version of refried beans. And then I just taste for seasoning, add anything else I think I might need. And if they do seem a little bit too dry, just add a little bit more liquid. You can add chicken stock, water, whatever you want. Sometimes I add hot sauce to this, which makes it really tasty. I didn't tonight. I didn't even get out my salsa or anything tonight. I just kept it simple. I didn't do anything crazy. I could have done so many more toppings on this. I just didn't. Here's that ground beef about done. I just wanted to tell you guys, it's something I've done for years and years, and I guess I just don't really think about it anymore. But when you brown your meat, you want it to be brown. I mean, like when it's cooked, it turns brown, but you want little brown bits on your meat. That brings in so much more flavor, and it's so important to make the flavor profile just pop out. So then here I'm just seasoning up my ground beef with some garlic powder and taco seasoning. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid to this, but this isn't your traditional taco seasoning. It doesn't have all the cornmeal in it to thicken up the water. I'm just adding that water to help mix in those seasonings to my ground beef. And I actually ended up letting most of that water just cook all the way out. You'd be surprised what, if you were to compare my taco seasoning that I get from Azure to your packet of taco seasoning, the color difference. If you put them side by side, the packet is so pale because it is basically just full of like cornmeal, which helps that packet thicken up. So here we are, we're putting down the layers. First goes down the ground beef, and then we'll put down the pinto beans and spread them out. And then we're just top it with the rest of our toppings. Like I said, I didn't pull out a bunch of stuff. I didn't pull out any salsa or cilantro or lime or pico or nothing. I just did the ground beef, the pinto beans, sour cream mixed with some more taco seasoning, lettuce, and cheese. And then we had our taco dip. Here's my favorite kitchen product of all time. And I actually realized that I had the wrong attachment in there because I had used it as a mandolin, so I had to change out. But this thing is so nifty. Look at that. So here's the mandolin portion, and then I need to pop in the cheese grater portion. But look at all the attachments that come with this. You can do so many things. I've talked about it in videos before. I leave it linked down below because it is seriously one of my favorite kitchen tools. It's kind of like an all-in-one. And the mandolin slices potatoes perfectly thin, especially, you know, sometimes you cut potatoes and some are too thick. It takes forever to cook. No, this works perfect. 90% of the time I'm using it as a cheese grater, but it comes definitely in handy whenever I need it for other stuff. So here we are finishing out our toppings. I leave a little corner for my son that doesn't have sour cream and lettuce on it because he doesn't like sour cream or lettuce. This definitely would have done well with more toppings like the salsa and stuff like that, but we kept it simple and we ate on this for so long. I feel like I did not need this huge pan. I mean, you can see the meat and beans basically filled this casserole dish up, and we did not need that much. But this is one of my husband's like favorite dinners, and it's just a simple like layered taco dip. And I plated up some for my son because he had like a specific section of the pan. And yeah, this is my son's. And I just took the pan over and we just ate it out of the pan, honestly. And that's what we did when we ate leftovers too. Technically, you're supposed to chill this first. I wasn't waiting for that. So yeah, super good. And one of our favorites. I just did not need to make that much. All right, here's one of those chickens we got. I ended up making this in the Instapot. All right, today's been a little bit of a long day, but here's that chicken. I pressure cooked it for about an hour and 10 in the Instapot, and then I let it sit to really so that stock really gets some flavor into it. It's been sitting about 2 hours in the warm, Instapot, and I'm gonna pull that out in a minute and pick it. And then over here, I am making some rolls, and this isn't the best lighting ever over here, which is why, but I'm gonna bring this dough together until it's a shaggy dough. I should have broken that yolk. And then I'm gonna shape them into like little buns to put that pulled chicken on. And I'll show you kind of what it looks like as it's coming together. Okay, these are the buns before I let them rise. And this is like a quick bun recipe, so it only took about 30 minutes to rise. And then here are our buns with the pulled chicken. We added barbecue sauce, had a salad with it, and those are the leftover bones from the chicken to save for broth. All right, today we're going to be making that beautiful pink salad dressing that you saw the other day. And I'm actually out now, and last night I ended up eating like a bottled dressing and didn't enjoy it too much. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this started. So this recipe calls for a half of an onion. I'm gonna use a little bit more than half here. And why can't I get this? I'm gonna use a little bit more than half here because I like the onion flavor. And it calls for half of a small onion. So this onion was pretty small anyway. And this is a dressing. I worked in a coffee shop when I was younger, and it was my favorite job of all time. And we had this salad, and I took this recipe with me whenever the coffee shop closed down, and I've used it ever since. So we have half of a red onion in here. We're gonna add, what should we add next? Let's add the salt. So we want a teaspoon of salt, roughly. All right, and then we need a half a cup of sugar. And don't worry, this isn't too overpowering an onion, especially once it sits for a little bit. And I usually go just a teeny bit less than a half of a cup. And then we need a fourth of a cup of vinegar. I'm using red wine vinegar from Azure. I have used white vinegar before and it turned out just fine. So we want a fourth of a cup of that. This vinegar is really good though from Azure, this red wine vinegar. I really, really like it. All right. And then this recipe also calls for a teaspoon of dry mustard. I never have that in my house, so I never put it in. But it also calls for 2 tablespoons of water. That's just to help stretch it a bit. And then 1 cup of oil. The original recipe called for vegetable oil. I always use avocado oil. Just make sure you're using an oil that is light in flavor. And again, with the oil, I always go a little bit less than a cup. And it still turns out really well. A lot of salad dressings have tons of oil in them. Mayo has tons of oil. So as long as you're using an oil with a very, very light flavor, you'll be good to go. So now I'm just gonna put my lid on this. You can use an immersion blender to do this. Just a regular blender. I'm just shaking it up to get the sugar. Whatever way you need to blend. Let me set the blender up so I can show you guys. So you can see it still had a couple little chunks in it, and we're just gonna blend this up real good to make sure there's no chunk. All right, I hope the color is coming through on this because it is absolutely gorgeous. Look at that beautiful pink dressing, and it is so, so, so good. So here's our beautiful dressing. I really feel like the pink is not coming out super well on camera, but it's pretty bright pink. So I'm gonna leave the recipe for this down below, and for the dressing and then how to top the salad. Obviously you can use any toppings you like. I'll show you what the original toppings were for this salad, and then I'll just show you how I typically top it. Okay, moving on for dinner tonight, I'm making a chicken and rice recipe with that leftover pulled chicken from the other night. And so what I'm doing is adding into my casserole dish a 1.5 cups of rice, and then I'm just seasoning it up with kind of whatever seasonings. I did throw in Italian seasoning in here. I won't do that next time. It wasn't our favorite. The original recipe called for a pack of Lipton onion soup, which I didn't have, so I just put some beef stock powder in there and added the minced onion to kind of give it the same effect as that like Lipton dry onion soup mix. And then of course a good seasoning of salt, because rice likes to soak up salt. And then we're adding our leftover chicken stock from the other night. I added 2 cups of that, and then 2 cans of a cream of soup. So you could do cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, cream of celery. I just make my own, which you saw last week. And then a 1/2 cup of sour cream. And then now we are adding, oh, it looks like I was a little short on broth, so I was adding just a little bit more of that leftover broth in there to make sure we had enough liquid, because if you don't have enough liquid, then your rice isn't going to cook all the way through. And then I decided to throw in a few cloves of our confit garlic. And then we're just going to mix it all up, add our chicken, wrap it in aluminum foil, and then you bake this at 350 for 1 hour and 15 to 1 hour and 30 minutes. Pull it out at about 1 hour and 15, check the doneness of your rice. And then if you want, again, I don't have a broiler, so I can't do this, but stick it under the broiler for a few minutes just to add some color. You could even top it with cheese if you wanted. And yeah, we really like this dish. I usually make it with pork, but we had a lot of leftover chicken, so we made it with chicken. I did forget to add that in this particular recipe, or on this particular night, I ended up topping this with some frozen broccoli just to add a little bit more veg into the dish. I don't typically, when I make this with pork, I don't add the broccoli, which is why I forgot to mention it. Thought I'd show you how far of a walk it is to the shop, to our one of our freezers, and it's not that far. There's the garden and persimmons area. There's the camper, and that big building is the shop. I thought I'd show you up here. 2 of my turkey hens up in the tree getting ready to roost for the night. And I don't know where my Tom is. He typically sleeps along the pond here. He just got attacked by a dog a couple days ago and is pretty hurt, but he seems to be doing a lot better now. So hopefully, fingers crossed. There's persimmon. I'm just gonna head in here and get some frozen broccoli. So here's how I top my salad. I add my sliced almonds, which I love the sliced almonds on this, not slivered, sliced. The texture is perfect. And then I add some mandarin oranges. I had some left over in the fridge. I didn't feel like opening another can, so I just used what was left with that. And then I top with the dressing. And isn't this so pretty? The green, the orange, the pink. The salad is just so pretty, and it's one of my favorites, obviously, because you see me eating it all the time. But sometimes I don't put the mandarin oranges on there. It just depends. They were hard to find in my area for a little while, so I didn't have them for several weeks. Sometimes I just don't feel like opening a new can, so I'll just put the slivered almonds on there, and it's still just as good. This is what we had for dinner tonight. So we had the chicken broccoli rice, which actually probably would have been good with some cheddar in it, and the salad, and it was really good. And we did really good with eating leftovers this week, so we're pretty proud of ourselves.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me this week during the pantry challenge. I'm pretty proud of ourselves for eating our leftovers and producing so much less food waste than usual. Like, even though we didn't make this massive dent in our freezer, the dent we made all got consumed, which is awesome. So I think that's another big kind of goal for this year for us, is to produce less food waste. I mean, that's so important. So yeah, as you can see, I didn't have to cook a ton of meals this week because we were eating leftovers on some nights, which is actually really great for me too. Just less time having to plan, prep, and cook a meal, 5 to 7 nights a week. And I didn't have to do that this week because of the leftovers we ate. And then one night over the weekend, Saturday, I believe, we ate dinner at my mom's. And then Sunday, we just did that leftover shredded chicken from the chicken we made in the Instapot. So it turned out perfect. It worked out perfect. And I'm excited for this next week coming up because we're supposed to have a snow day. And I want to make something I haven't made in a really long time for the snow day, kind of like in honor of the snow day. So that's really exciting. So come back next week and check out what we do for the pantry challenge. I just want to say I appreciate you all so much for being here, and I hope I see you again next week. Bye, guys.